So welcome to this special meeting of the Cemetery Board. We're here to discuss a couple matters today. And I'll just introduce myself, Representative Rosados, designee as chair.
Paul Ambrose, representing Commissioner Howard Zucker of the Department of Health.
And Chris Wiles, representing the Attorney General, Eric Snyder.
Louis Polishuk, Director of the Cemeteries.
Chester Butkowitz, Assistant Director of the Cemetery.
Mike Seelman, Senior Investigator, Division of Cemeteries.
Monet McAdoo, Secretary, Division of Cemeteries.
Tony Milano, Counsel to the Cemetery Board.
Okay. So, first on the agenda is Woodlawn Cemetery has before us an application for a crematory and mauso and chapel, one building structure. So there's some conversation, and we now have completed application. It's a good thing. And why don't we get started?
Yeah, I'm going to start just with the investigative piece of it, a little bit of history, and then Chad will move on to the finances. When we initially got the application, we were inclined to recommend denial based largely on the fact that we thought that the project would create overcapacity for cremations in Onondaga County. We've resolved that issue. We actually now think that, well, essentially the existing crematory in Onondaga County at Oakwood Cemetery could, technologically speaking, handle more cases, a lot more cases. But as a matter of practice, as they exist right now, they're actually very close to full, not quite at, but very close to full capacity, unless they were going to start running a double shift, which is something they haven't done. We've also, or significantly upgrading their facilities, which they have not sought to do. Another thing that was done to adjust this is that Woodlawn, after discussions with us, is now seeking to install a Bristol one torch, which is much more in line with the additional capacity needed in the area. At some point in time, we might need a second retort, but that is way far in the future. And while the building can accommodate one, they're only seeking for one right now. The other aspect, in terms of where this should go, I mean, aside from the fact that nobody else is seeking to put anything on the County, has historically been low at the cemetery. They operate in black every year, and we don't have an issue with them having a crematory per se. Actually, that's a good idea. But, the big picture, we'll get into the numbers in a second. But
actually, I want to focus. Let's do one thing at a time. So, what you're giving us right now is essentially the regional analysis, the need for the cremation facility, and you're saying, you're saying, one, it's not injurious to the existing cremation center.
should not be.
Should not be. And two, there's a need, and that is regionally beneficial.
But we estimated that they could take somewhere between 6 to 11% of Oakwood's volume. But given that cremation volume is increasing at a rate of between 3 and 5% in Onondaga County over the last 3 years, there should be room for them to both have increased volume and for Oakwood not to suffer a significant loss. Again, this is based on every one retort. One real concern we had was with 2 retorts up against 3, we could be in a situation of ruinous competition. But we don't think that this is got even potential to do that.
Okay.
And of course, I'll remind these guys and Oakwood, when they watch this at home, that of course their service charges have to be approved by us, so we can and will physically prevent there being a bidding war on this.
All right. So this is sort of, I think this is 2 stages, all right? Because this is an initial hurdle, and I think we discussed it briefly the first time this came around,
right.
And we talked about responsibilities and condition for regional review. And so philosophically, like Louis is telling us that the project, philosophical basis, there's a need for cremation facility. That part
There may not be right now, but there will be
Right,
very,
but
very soon.
projecting, okay. Right, so before we go on to the specific application for the specific facility, do we have any questions, comments on what Lewis has presented in terms of?
Columbarium and Champ.
Columbarium and Chapel we'll get into with the numbers, but, I mean, quite candidly, in economic terms, we do not see a need for a chapel here or pretty much anywhere outside of New York City because they don't tend to get a high percentage of business from either cremations or interments. Having said that, we'll get to this when we get to the financials. The chapel itself does not add a tremendous amount of money to the project, and it's probably we'll probably get to this when we talk about the finances, but Woodlawn's vision, which we would like, we are both skeptical of, but would also like to see be proved right, is that right now, cremation is, let me see how I can phrase this delicately. Crematory, Oakwood's crematory and a lot of other crematories in New York are just not set up for having an experience that promotes the family participating in the ceremony and having both the ability and seeing those niches there, the incentive to memorialize and provide a place when it goes in a regular cemetery. Their vision for this would create that, and while numbers-wise, we find that outside of New York City it's not a slog, we would very much like to see them be right about this, because, I mean, I'm trying to not put this, I'm trying to be delicate in how to say this. We want cremation to be, we as division think that it ought to be in a deceased and respectful way when they choose cremation, and to be able to have a quality facility that can handle that and not have this go in the direction of you drop, the body is picked up at the hospital, funeral director takes it to the crematory, there's a cremation, and the remains just sit in the funeral home because nobody picks them up.
Well, that's the vision.
Take them home, put them on the manor. But, Louis, why do we care if they're wrong? I mean,
Well,
what-
that
is
gets
it
to the
our-
that gets to the
Yeah.
financial piece.
It's
Other
all
than the
about money.
financial piece, we don't care if they're wrong.
Well, why do we care about the financial piece? If they want to build a chapel, why don't we let them build a chapel?
Well, we'll talk to. I mean, Chet will go over the numbers. I
Yeah.
mean,
Is
we're
it
by the way, the division is recommending approval of the project, although we would love to see a couple $100,000 drop out of the cost. But I'd probably let Chet do the financials.
So I'll focus this just a little bit. The first part, this was a hump to get over,
Right.
was the regional analysis and the need for the crematory, and that it appears we've done. I mean, sounds fine. That's a huge issue, and that is now behind us. The second issue is going to be, and to answer your question, just the same as with any capital project improvement at a cemetery, we're going to look at the project to make sure it's going to be financially viable. Not to second guess cemetery administration, because I always say I give deference as much as I can, but if you get a project that's clearly going to be damaging, obviously we have the information, we have approval authorities, so we go through the finances and make sure that won't be the case. So that's where when Lewis talks about, we're going to go into the finances, that's really what we're talking about. Okay, is this a good project or not? If it's clearly a bad project, we have a problem. If it's an iffy project, we talk about it. And if it's a great project, we say, wonderful, go forth and conquer.
And something that came up in our discussions with the cemetery, I mean, this is ultimately your call, but I'll take a crack at it anyway, which is, as far as we're concerned, not speaking as the lawyers, but just speaking as the division, it is true that this project is being financed entirely from the cemetery's general fund. We are obviously less concerned about an expenditure of general funds than we are about a situation where a cemetery has to take a PM loan. But we absolutely do believe that, notwithstanding the fact that this is the general fund that's paying for this, that you guys and we have a role to play in saying, how $2 million is going to be spent.
Yeah, and I'd like to just give a little background on that. I mean, the policy of the state says the cemeteries are run for the benefit of the lot owners. And that's why there's a cemetery board, to make sure that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, but Tony, we got a cemetery that doesn't have a financial problem.
Well,
I mean, we got money there, and they've chosen to spend it the way they want to spend it.
but I think that the board still has to do an analysis of, is this in the best interest of the cemetery, which means is it in the best interest of the lot
You
owners?
can play with the numbers.
Right.
We looked at these numbers, and you take out depreciation, or you don't put it in, and the numbers, you can make them come out any way you want.
Well, all right, so getting to the specifics.
Why don't we?
There's,
Let me
there's-
just, I mean, I just want to respond to what Chris said. I think in a different situation where we had a cemetery that wasn't clearly making money year in and year out, I would not agree with the premise you're stating there. In this case, one of the reasons we're recommending approval here, notwithstanding the fact that this is not going to make money for a long time on net, is that we're a little bit more comfortable with a consistently well-run cemetery taking a gamble. I still would like it to be a cheaper gamble, and they have reduced the price by a couple $100,000 to take that to accommodate that concern. Would I have liked to see more? Yes, but we have to face the project that we're presented with.
Why don't we?
So, Tony, do you want to?
Why don't we hear the?
Move on to
why
the
don't we
action.
hear the fiscal side of this?
Yeah.
Let's get a sense.
But let me just mention what aspects of the law and the regulations we should be addressing. I mean, there's section 1505-A, which sets forth what the board must have in front of it for approval of a crematory. And one of it is a business plan. So obviously, the intent of the statute is there has to be positive cash flow. It has to make sense financially. Otherwise, why you require a business plan? That's the crematory. The mausoleum also requires estimated cost of construction, including landscape and embellishments, the sources of funds, estimate of funds required to maintain and preserve, and then where the funds, the total revenues are going to go: permanent maintenance, supplemental trust, selling expenses, recovery construction costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a detailed analysis. Again, it's pretty much a business plan. Show me what this is going to cost, what it's going to make, where that money's going to go. The board's supposed to be looking that this makes financial sense, the mausoleum. And then even the major renovation, section 201.11, talks about the costs and the funds to pay for the costs, costs to maintain and preserve, estimate of cumulative total revenues. So every aspect of this should be looked at based on our statute and regs on a financial analysis. It isn't just, well, sure, you've got $8 million, go ahead and spend $2 million of it. It has to make sense to the board.
Tony raises a good point. I didn't put before you my magnum opus on writing this up because I thought we were sort of past those issues. But for the record, I think we ought to state that with one exception, we've determined that all of the non-financial requirements of 201.11 and 201.16 of our regulations are met. The one that I don't know about, which I should have asked you in advance, but I think I know the answer to this. I'll put you on the spot and ask you right now. I take it that in response to the postings, you received no comments.
No.
Right. Nobody ever does. But there.
I did receive one positive, if that helps.
Excellent. Excellent. So they did have the requisite postings. Mike checked that out. They've been up. I had forgotten to ask whether they got no comments. I'm sure they got no comments. They got no comments. So now I can say all of the non-financial requirements of 201.11 and 201.16 are met.
All right, so tell us about the project, Chad.
Okay, so initially the project was estimated to be $2,249,825 for the construction of the building, architect fees, crematory furnishings, and niches. Based upon subsequent conversations, the total cost of the project has been reduced by eliminating one of the two retorts originally planned and getting the construction cost reduced, I believe, by an additional $150,000. So the total cost of the construction with equipment, including architect fees and furnishings and niches, is $1,998,932. So for purposes of an accounting method to calculate net annual revenues, we depreciate the construction cost over 30 years. So this is a 15-year projection. Half of the construction cost would be depreciated during that period.
Chad, just a clarification, we're not
Yes.
really depreciating, right? We're not lowering the value of the building, we're amortizing the cost of construction.
Well, it's an accounting term. You could
Whatever, but
You
what it
could-
means,
you could-
and this is important to me, all right? So what it means is that we're doing a 15-year projection of total revenue
yeah.
and expenditure and pushing out for the second 15 years, which won't appear in any analysis, the cost of the structure.
Correct, sir.
So what's the point of this 15-year analysis?
Well, it's an accounting analysis of the net revenue. That's how you calculate net revenue.
But it's not net. It's net minus 15 years of payments for the construction. It's net minus $1 million, right? If it's $2 million for the construction,
right.
then I don't care about amortization or depreciation or
Understood,
everything. I'm
right.
just saying, okay, look, this is what it costs to build. This is
Right.
what it costs to operate.
Right.
This is what your revenue is.
Right. Well, if you take out the cost of depreciation or amortization, as Lou
Right.
said, then that would increase the net surplus, if you will, by that same amount, which is about $1 million.
Right.
And that's what we do actually to calculate the payback period of your cost of investment.
I mean,
So
the short answer to your question is that you're right, but I think it's just worth noting we originally tried to do a 30-year projection of everything and concluded that it's just not, we don't have a crystal ball that's going to tell us what the market is going to be like in 30 years. For 15 years, we have a greater degree of confidence than 30. But
Chet was just going to say.
Sorry.
That's all right. You were just going to say that without
depreciation,
whatever, that you get a percentage, right? You get a 15-year payback.
You get a 15-year payback of the
you have a that's your old estimate. That's a 2% return, simple return. Is that what that would be?
No, the 2% is different.
All right, so it's 4%. I'm just looking at that. Forgive me, I have trouble, as you know.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
challenged with numbers.
All right. No, that's fine. That's fine. Looking at the third sheet, where it's a 15-year analysis going from 2016 to 2030, with the totals all the way to the right. If this is the divisions analyses, all the way to the right, at the bottom, net revenue would be $613,601 for the 15-year period. The line below that indicates the percentage return on operations.
That's before you take out the recovery?
That's before you take out the recovery, correct. And then when you include the recovery, it's 2%.
2%?
Yes.
Right, okay. And you had
But with a 30-year amortization. So
Was a
that's
third?
2%.
Yes, correct.
Okay. But so the numbers below, I've looked at this quite a long time.
I thought it was
We went
4%.
around-
It's the
we went
numbers
around the-
below
yeah.
that show you how much of the construction is paid off in 15 years. And that's under the heading net revenue expense without depreciation cumulative payback.
And the divisions is different than submitted by the cemetery by virtue of, because part of the revenue and expense analysis is the difference between the cemetery submission and divisions
Yeah,
is the number of cremations.
We saw that.
is divisions is lower by almost 1,200 cremation
We're
units.
pretty conservative on that.
Also, too, the divisions analyses took into account 10% of funding into permanent maintenance for the sale of each niche, and it also reduced the revenue by $35 per internment. Okay, so to point out the actual differences.
I don't need the differences, actually.
Okay.
Why
All
do
right,
we need,
so,
we
well-
have the divisions, let's talk about the divisions
Okay,
for now.
all right, so the division.
Cemetery will have a chance to chat about.
Okay, so
you
the
know, where you're
division-
wrong.
Thanks, Dan.
So the division projection is over the 15-year period, net revenues would total $613,601, with 18% return on operations, which is less the consideration of depreciation / amortization, and overall the return on investment would average about 2% over 15 years.
Okay, so the net revenues for 15 years, which total on 1 year charge about $3.5 million, that's a real 15-year projection. That's not selling all the niches, right?
No, that would represent, based upon the analyses, about 200 niches.
It's based on their
Okay, so how
rate
much-
of sales now.
So what kind of stock is left after
Approximately
that 15
about
years?
half. Also, too, the original submissions suggested 100% of net sales would be sold. On discussions, I think we agreed that historically 5 or 10%
That'll help.
is undesirable. Either doesn't get sold, is very difficult to sell. So, so that was taken into consideration as well.
How is that? It could be if I would assume that for the first 15 years, the sales are of the desirables.
Correct.
And that the 10% that we argue is not desirable would be come into play in the 25th year. Correct. So why does that have any impact? That doesn't have any impact at all on these numbers.
It would not. You're
Okay.
correct, sir.
All right. But it's important to note for me,
Yep.
because I had the question,
Yes.
that there's still a stock of sales
Yes.
that go on to the future.
Correct.
All right. Makes me feel a little better.
Yep.
All right. 2%.
next. Okay, go ahead.
2% is not a great return. Although now you say there's revenue to support the payout on 30 years, so maybe I feel a little bit better
Yes.
about it. Maybe
Yep.
we can talk about that.
Again, I think we've made fairly
But Chet
conservative
had a
assumptions here.
very interesting and I wouldn't say snarky comment in the papers where you said, hey, 2%. I throw $2 million in.
Yeah.
At a 2% simple interest in a CD or something, and guess what I get for a return on that? I get $600,000
With no compounding.
with no compounding. So that was a red light to me. It called into question, well, is the expense of this project is the revenue justifying the expense? All right, and what does the division think about that? What do you think about that, Louis?
My feeling is, as long as we're pretty sure they're not losing money on this, I've, over many months of considering this, come to be persuaded to some extent by their argument that this is a service that they ought to be offering for the long-term future of the cemetery, with in-ground burials declining.
Do they
I
need
feel the need to
As long
jump
as they're
in.
not.
with both feet?
Both feet.
All right, jump.
And the bow tie.
We're going to get wet. Okay. When I first saw divisions analysis, which is modified over the term, but it started off pretty much where they are. The numbers have changed. The type of analysis hasn't changed. It struck me as very different from any other application that's been presented to the board for either a crematory or a columbarium. And I've looked back at the prior applications, and none of them amortize over 30 years. Actually, what they do look at is a payback of the cost of construction, normally within 5 to 10 years, sometimes short of 5 years. Sometimes construction costs are paid back in 3 years, and everything after that is gravy. It's unprecedented for the division to spread costs over 30 years for a crematory and the 30 years over for a columbarium. I've never seen them do that before.
Well, the columbarium, I'm going to disagree. We just approved, you guys just approved Flushing, which was a rather massive columbarium where we did do a 30-year projection, and they didn't break even until after year 15. That did not include a crematory. I agree with you 100% on the crematories, but we did have at least this one example of a columbarium.
I looked at the ones that I pulled from Division's records: North Syracuse, Corwin Cemetery, Webster Union, Mount Ararat, Poughkeepsie Rural, Greenwood, Whitehaven. I didn't see that kind of an amortization. But even so, you're saying 15 years might be the max you've done for this. 30
Flushing
years.
might have been even longer. It
And I
depends
just
on the
wanna-
assumption.
As far as
We
the
had multiple
payback
assumptions there.
And I just want
So-
to clarify first that the depreciation and amortization is an accounting concept. The actual, if we take that out of consideration based upon a division's review or projection, payback would be after the 15th year.
So right. So under your projections, it's around year 17 that the loan is paid off, and then they actually start making money.
Well, that the money is
on the
repaid.
2
There's no
million.
loan.
Right. So that's the first striking analysis. The other thing I've been grappling with is the cost. Why it takes so long for this project to earn its money back. At first I thought it was the chapel. The chapel is not a moneymaker. It's, I think they say it's a 75-person chapel. But Woodlawn has stressed over and over again, it's a small chapel. If you look at the footprint of the building, it's a small part of the building. So I have looked at it, and one of the reasons these drawings are here is so that the board can look at them. And so what has struck me now is that, yeah, all right, the chapel itself is a small, not really small, but it isn't a majority of the construction. What is striking is that this is a very expensive project. It's 5,600 square feet at about $2 million, which works out to $356 per square foot. That's
It's actually 7,000 square foot.
I'm sorry?
7,000.
The building is 5,600.
The only conditioned part of the building. The rest of the part of the buildings are all overlays and porch cochere and things like that. So you got to incorporate the 7,000.
What do you mean by conditioned?
Air conditioned or heated.
Okay, so the occupied portions of the building, what portions are unconditioned?
The outdoor overhangs and
Right.
other areas and things like that, which add to the 7,000, but it's all in the construction cost.
Right. So these are outdoor areas. These are arches, carports. These are not interior spaces.
Correct.
Okay. And interior space is 5,600 square feet.
Right.
We agree on that. Okay. So it is $356 per interior square foot.
No, it's not.
If you exclude,
But you can't exclude it because it's not
part of it.
separately. The costs aren't separated, so
All right.
you can't use. You're
The way
mixing
this
apples
works-
and oranges.
The way this works is you get invited by the chair to speak.
A little color,
I'd like to hear
Tony out.
All right.
Sure.
All right. So I looked at construction costs, and there's a bunch of calculators out there. There's some that even allow you to pick the city, and Syracuse is one of the cities. For a one-floor structure, no basement, no second floor, $128 was the luxury price per square foot.
Luxury price of what?
Of
What kind
a
structure?
home.
Mhm.
Okay. That's with stone on the outside. Again, first floor only, because this is only a one floor. Adding a second floor dramatically increases the price per square foot.
Does it
No
make a
basement.
difference if comparing commercial structures?
I didn't have a chance to do that. The easiest calculators to find were residential. So this is a luxury building. If you look at the drawings, there's a lot of brickwork, a lot of arches, a lot of. This is not a simple building. This is not what we normally see. I think I have some numbers. The normal retorts that we see with a new building and a single retort, the highest I found of the last 5 that were approved was $270,000. Their own documents, I believe, say that the columbarium accounts for $323,000. So 323 plus 300, that's $600,000 the cemetery could spend to have the crematory it wants and the columbarium it wants. So there's an additional 1.3 million that's being spent here. And that's what's making this project so expensive, and so why it takes so long before Woodlawn recovers its costs and starts showing any positive income over the cost of the project. And I bring this all out because there has to be a business plan for the crematory. There has to be a business plan for the columbarium. And the whole project as a whole has to meet the requirements of a major renovation. It has to be for the benefit of the lot holders. And the last time we spoke, I believe Woodlawn's general funds have dropped recently. Can you tell me?
I don't know what they are.
I think we were told they're below $8 million at this point.
No.
No?
I would never mention that.
Okay. But they're not at the $9 million when this project started.
Actually, I think they are. They're
Okay.
close to $9 million still.
All right.
I've taken the construction fund out. And I never mentioned that it was below that.
All right, because we've seen 6 and 2. I don't think we've seen anything, but in any event, it's a major expenditure of funds. The question is it appropriate for this cemetery, for its flat owners to have this amount of money spent on this building when it could receive the same economic return by spending only $600,000-$700,000?
Right, 6, maybe 800. Talking about a chapel, no problem with that. I think that is the question. All right, and what's the value added? And you will have a chance to chat about this, obviously, because I understand. I read your statement. You have a vision. All right, but in light of the relatively negative payoff numbers on this, I think we have to consider it. Division before we, division and board. In fact, board questions, comments at this point.
Well, we always seem to take the cheaper alternative and impose our restrictions on not just this cemetery, but all cemeteries as to what kind of fence they can build, whether they can put steps up to their monuments or not. And I'm not sure that, well, Tony points out, to the benefit of the lot owners, well, it's the future lot owners as well as the present lot owners. And I'm not sure that a nice-looking cemetery isn't to the benefit of lot owners.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, this is, to me, this is the closest analogy here, and I think what sort of, I'm on the fence on this one. What put me just on one side of the fence as opposed to be just on the other side of the fence was the Flushing project. I think that's probably the most analogous thing that we can come up with, where it's not a perfect analogy. They had a better argument than these guys do. They were building onto a historic building, and it made no sense to spend a lot less money to build on something that didn't match to their historic building, because that would seriously impede their niche sales and hurt the overall aesthetic of the cemetery. Having said that, the building they built was twice the cost of this, and it's smaller. Of course, it's in New York City. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a crematory.
We had a lot of discussion about that.
We had a lot of discussion, but ultimately we approved it because it simply made sense in the context of the cemetery. This is a little closer call. This is not adding on to an existing historic building where you have to spend extra money to match that. And were we to be designing this project, I would certainly look for ways to reduce the cost, not necessarily as much as Tony is saying, but certainly somewhat. And I see no reason you couldn't do this somewhat more cheaply and still have a nicer project. On the other hand, this isn't like your typical situation where we have competing where we get these competing bids are things like dangerous monument applications or things where you're building something that's relatively straightforward, that there's really only one, there's only one way, one or two ways to fix a monument, fix steps, do roads. These are things that are just sort of routine. This is an architectural thing. It's got a lot more discretion going on here. And while I would love to send them back and have them redesign it, I don't know that that's a direction I want to go in, provided that they're not actually losing money on it. It's just going to take them a long time to make money.
All right. Let's see what.
You got anything, Paul?
I'm trying to parse out the.
So we've managed to confuse you. This is good.
You said that the regs say that this needs to be to the benefit of the lot owners and the cemetery, didn't you?
Which really is the lot owners. I mean, the cemetery itself has to be run for the benefit of the lot owners.
Right.
So it exists for the lot owners. The lot owners are the members of the cemetery. They're the voting power.
Although I think Chris is right, it also includes, we should be thinking of the future as well as the
Well, they're
present.
quasi-public trusts. That's a whole other issue. But
So what I'm
anyway.
trying to figure out is what the benefits are to the lot owners versus the benefits to the cemetery, and then what the risks are to the lot owners and to the cemetery. And I'm not able to discern that yet from what's been said. What specifically is the risk to the lot owners, for example, of approval of this project?
I think Tony's point is that it's almost akin to corporate waste. If you can make the money, I'm making Tony's point. All right?
I can see.
If you can make the money cheaper, all right, and that perhaps this is profligate, and that
That they have more money
but
in reserve.
then the cemetery is healthier as a
Right.
result, and a healthy cemetery
financially,
makes
yes.
happy lot owners.
Okay.
At least.
I mean, we don't think there is risk in the sense of, I think our assumptions, I like to think that our assumptions are conservative enough that it is very unlikely that this project will perform worse financially than we're projecting, and there is a
In
decent
this case,
chance
you're
that it
saying
will do better.
that they're not going, in the long run, they are not going to lose money.
Right,
That's what your point is.
right.
You're going to say that.
Let's quantify that,
Yeah.
because Chet in his report talked about the money this could have earned if you don't do it at all. You just put that $2 million earning 2% simple
Opportunity
interest.
cost?
Yeah, opportunity cost. The fact is, if I found an S&P 500 calculator. So over the past 15 years, $2 million would have earned between $700,000 and $1 million, depending on precisely when you invested that $2 million. So it isn't often we do that analysis, because often within a few years these projects are making money. When you're going out 15, 30 years, you really need to look at the opportunity cost to see, is this making money or is this actually losing money? Even though it looks like it's making money because after year 15 it finally pays off the debt, it actually isn't because of the opportunity costs.
I understand.
So it's not just a cost of $2 million, it's a cost of $2 million plus what that $2 million would have earned.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but this is not for profit.
Right.
And we're always not looking to make money. And if not-for-profits just stuck their money in the bag and earned money, it'd be great. They'd never go out of business. And not-for-profit.
Well, not in the bank.
Well, let's keep in mind what the general fund is there for. The statute requires that the income in the cemetery get divided between the permanent maintenance fund and the current maintenance fund. Permanent maintenance fund is for future costs. Current maintenance fund is for current maintenance. Now, they've done very well. They've got $8 million in what really should be called their current maintenance fund. But that's what that money is there for. It's for maintenance of that cemetery as it's an ongoing concern. And the permanent maintenance is there for the long-term future.
Right, but it's making the case. I think Chris's point.
Well, Paul's
is that there's a-
point, it isn't an ordinary risk. It isn't like a business risk when we're dealing with not-for-profits. I think the risk is a little different.
So I guess my only conclusion there is that, I'm sorry, the general fund has to be held responsibly as well.
Yes.
You know, we're
Yes.
very strict
Yeah,
about the
that-
permanent
that's true.
maintenance fund, and rightly so, but the general fund can't be wasted either, even when there's a lot of it.
That was your first point.
But
I don't think there's any
I mentioned-
disagreement on that
We
principle
all
here.
agree. I mentioned the public trust component. The fact is that in addition to the fiscal responsibility to the lot holders, cemeteries exist because of their special place in the culture and fabric of the state. And we accept that cemeteries ought to be servicing the communities and the regions that they're in. All right, so that it really isn't just making money, as you know. I mean, I'm not saying anything we don't already know. It's that you're providing the service for the proper disposition of loved ones. So we accept that a crematory is a good thing for this region. We accept that a mausoleum is a good thing for this region. We may accept that a chapel is a good thing. I mean, that's
If it doesn't add much money, we at least accept
fine.
that.
You know, and that has a value that is intangible. All right, so it isn't just dollars and cents, but dollars and cents make a huge difference too. I mean, we have to pay very close attention. So that being said,
Yeah, let's hear it.
go for it.
Well, I'd like to address Tony's concern first.
Yep.
A residential estimate of over $28 a square foot on a commercial building, even in Syracuse, New York, is way low. It's more like $200 a
Oh,
square
yeah.
foot.
Steve, could you state your name and?
Sorry.
Stephen Small, Superintendent of Woodlawn Cemetery. $200 a square foot is what we were trying to match because that's what we were told by both our architects, builders in the area, what the going rate was.
Mhm.
We're at the 7,000 square foot and all the attributes, parking, curbing, landscaping, everything like that that's included in this building, we're at about $225 a square foot.
Are were the apples that you were comparing to, I don't know if you know, did they also include like the pertinent spaces, the non-conditioned spaces?
Yes, yeah. You have to include
Is
those
that-
because they're not separated out in any building contract.
And presumably they're actually required by code.
Right, by code and
It's
all.
like in a Holiday Inn, the awning's part of the
Correct.
square footage.
Correct.
Okay.
Required by codes?
They have to have a certain amount of parking if they're putting in a building.
Okay, but that's not the arches, the carports, that's not the
Well,
outer
but
structures.
it is the HVAC, the fire sprinklers, all the other stuff that are required by code. And because of the position which we picked so that the facility would be within the cemetery, far enough away from neighbors or anybody else, so it wouldn't be a burden on anybody else, those things are adding costs. We're bringing utilities, water, power, gas lines in, all that adds to that cost. But on top of that, we are trying to make a nice building. I mean, I'm not gonna kid you. We have a brick and stone front veneer. And, those things add cost, but it comes back to our point. We are trying to make a facility that the cremation center at Woodlawn is something that families will be able to use for not only in the short term, but in the very long term. Woodlawn in 1970 built the first garden mausoleum in central New York. Today we have 8,000 crypts. Nobody expected that in 1970. In fact, I'm sure they had a lot of the same discussions we're having today about that project. Because of the fact that cremation is becoming such a vital part of the death care industry and what we do, we feel that preparing for our future, we need to have a crematory facility that can handle these types of issues. We thought by building a sterile, if I can use the word, concrete or steel building that houses a crematory would not be benefiting Woodlawn's lot owners and would not be benefiting the community. That's what Oakwood is. That is their business. They are a crematory with a large cemetery that they're trying to support. Woodlawn is a cemetery who wants to have a crematory. We still and hope to continue to have our positive bottom line year over year, which is driven by our community mausoleum sales, by our land sales and service fees. The addition of a crematory only is something that layers into our revenue stream. The fact that we're able to pay for it without borrowing money from our permanent maintenance fund, which I would never project a project where I would want to borrow from my permanent maintenance fund. allows us that opportunity today because we've had such a good appreciation of those funds by not having to use a lot of them for the maintenance of the cemetery overall. We still look at our roofs every year and replace them on any of our 25 buildings that we need to do. We pave roads, we do trees, we fix monuments because of the sales and marketing that we're able to do on our general operations. And I don't see that changing over the next 15 years. Our board has been integral in looking at this project. I want that clear. I am their spokesperson. I work for our board and the lot owners. The lot owners elect our board, who are 99% lot owners, to make Woodlawn what it is today. We have been very fortunate that our investments have been solid throughout the last 25 years. And now, between our general fund and our permanent maintenance fund, we have over $20 million in funds. I will say that the last time I looked, that's in the top 20 of the state of New York, not just in central New York. I think, we look at costs from different views by each one of us. I don't want to put something at Woodlawn that doesn't fit Woodlawn's persona. We maintain our cemetery to the highest level possible to serve our current lot owners and potential future lot owners. With a building that is not to the essence or what we've designed here would not be what we are looking for in this project. If I wanted a crematory, we have buildings along Teal Avenue that you well know of that we could have retrofitted to become a crematory and put the price at $150 to compete with Oakwood and come to you and said, oh, we'll pay it off in 2 years. But that's not what we're looking for. Our board has strategically said that this is an investment. We're taking part of our general fund that we invest in common stocks and bonds now and investing in the future of Woodlawn by putting in this facility. So we look at it as an investment, as a new fixed asset that we're placing on our property. Somewhat like a mausoleum that we do, but not with as greater return or quicker return because of the facility that we're having. The chapel, I understand, is an issue, but we need to have a facility in central New York so people have a choice. Currently, as far as I know, there is nobody else offering a committal service for a cremation family. And funeral directors have told me that they have had to actually tell families, no, you don't want to go to the crematory because I'm not going to take you there. And that shouldn't be allowed. That shouldn't be there. Will a number of additional people use that chapel? I hope so. I have good feelings about it, but we don't have a crematory and chapel to find out. So I need, and we are in a position to be able to build this, to have this facility, have it nice, while having also a solid cremation area, which is about 75% of that entire building.
Yeah, and that last figure you gave sort of takes the chapel out of the picture from a fiscal perspective. I'm not sure that, I think.
Right, the chapel,
I think
we all agree, and we now understand that the chapel's additional cost is relatively small.
So that one's a winner.
Well, I think, I'll happy to answer any questions or thoughts you have, but, this is something that Woodlawn has not taken lightly. We feel that this is a strategic part of our future. When change occurs, you need to look at new things and see how you're doing, where you come from, where you're going. We have a board that is doing that. And this is the first step in that change. How are we going to make Woodlawn a positive and money-earning company for the next 50 years, not just the next 10 or 15 years? And, it's coming down the road. You guys talk about people leaving them on the shelves. Well, yesterday, as a matter of fact, we had a family come in. We took some cremains that were being held at a local funeral home to permanently store them. And they came in from 1987. They had left their father at the funeral home. And they came in yesterday to get him because mom died. And all of a sudden now they're going to go scatter them in the woods. And, this is hurting cemeteries all over, not just in New York State. And for us to be able to position ourselves, to be able to serve our current lot owners and any future lot owners with this service is a big plus.
Where did they take the ashes from?
From Goddard Crandall Severance and Funeral Home.
Yeah, and what was that relationship to Woodlawn?
Well, we have a very good relationship with them. We were permanently storing them.
Oh, I
Instead of
see.
burying them,
Yeah, I see.
you know, we had them stored for them, so they could retrieve them.
And what percentage of your general fund are you using here?
23%.
I mean, the one thing I am confident of in this whole thing is that glass front niches sell, and they're an excellent product in getting a lot more glass front niches. I suspect that will outperform what we've projected.
Because that's look,
And there's room in the building
Yeah, I was just
to
gonna say.
add glass front niches without doing significant renovations. They can just put the cabinets in. There are areas, we went over this when we met, there are areas in the hallways and in the chapel if they wanted to where they can add to that. And that's something they're running relatively low on, and they'll always have.
So
Of course,
I don't. We this could be polarized discussion in terms of nothing or something, or just a crematory. You know, your typical crematory versus your vision for a structure that will serve the community in a multifaceted way. I don't think anybody's going to argue with you that that is a good vision and a good place to go. Something the cemetery, if it sees the need, ought to orient itself to do. Okay. I think the issue, at least for me, at this point, is 22% of your general fund, with perhaps a less rosy picture of revenue than ought to be painted. I don't know that.
Well, I think the numbers, I think that's the final thing. Even, I think they said earlier that these are conservative.
Right.
These are conservative.
But what we've got is what could be built perhaps, and I'm just pulling this out of the air because I could be totally wrong. All right, for $1 million. All right, something that is reasonable. We've got a $2 million price tag on, and that $2 million price tag, under the numbers that the division has given us, all right, doesn't yield a break-even point until about 17 years down the road, and that's the concern.
And I would argue that 90% of the other projects you've had have been borrowed money from their permanent maintenance fund.
Yeah, which
or
we
something
hate.
else.
And I think it's great that you can do that. The cemetery is successful.
And I
got
understand
that.
the
Yeah.
long-term payout, but, you know, when we're talking about accounting standards and all that other stuff, this is how it's done, you know, I mean, having the payout be that long is because of what our accountants would recommend us to do. You know, that amortization on paying back that building is gonna be 30 to 40 years, because that's how it's gonna look on our financial statements. So that is true. It's gonna take that long a time to pay it out, because that's what they're gonna do. It's not necessarily what the revenues as a whole we're gonna still get, but that payment of that project, the amortization of that building is gonna be over 30 years.
I understand, but the
So
revenue that you get
Is gonna be,
under the numbers that we've given comes out to about 600 grand, right, at the end of the 17 years.
that's the net.
That's the
15
net
years.
revenue. Right.
Right, but that includes the amortization.
I understand.
Without it, the payback, if you take out the amortization
Altogether, you mean.
altogether, the payback, based upon our numbers, would be just about 17 years.
Okay.
Paul's getting serious here.
So is there, I mean, I'm asking, I'm not telling or dictating. Is there a way to bring, because Lewis alluded to it half a dozen times. Is there a way to bring the cost of this thing down and still fulfill your vision?
No. I'm just gonna be honest with you, I don't think there is. We want to have a building that looks like an administrative building versus having a sterile environment. You know, we're trying to make this part of Woodlawn in the fashion and style that all of our community mausoleums have been built. You know, it needs to be a nice building, and you know, it's not easy just to take something from 2 million to 1 million. I mean, you know,
What about 2 million to 1.7 million?
Well,
That
we're
makes, that
bidding-
makes a cash flow difference. I mean, I'm really.
But we're
you know.
bidding every part of the project as it gets built.
Mhm.
So I can't tell you that it's gonna be, I mean, these are all budgetary items. I
Right.
mean, this is all paper. I hope we can make it less, because I don't wanna spend that kind of money. But I can't guarantee it. I wanna have the worst case scenario to you, so that we know. I mean, you know, we're gonna try to knock out some of the landscaping, because we'll do it ourselves. So it won't be an outside cost to other people. You know, maybe there's some roofing issues in terms of using copper versus metal and stuff like that we'll be able to value engineer as we're going through the bidding process. But I don't want to guarantee that to you. I mean, but I can't take $1 million off of it and make it function.
I wasn't asking for.
Oh, well, you brought up.
I said maybe to build the.
I was asking.
All right, but.
I was asking for a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that bothers me about the project is they got the foundation in.
Yes,
So
I apologize.
they, that means you don't reduce it by, you gotta chop up your foundation, you gotta rip it out.
We're not. No, I don't think we're talking about reducing.
Yeah,
I think. I
no,
think
no,
what
we're
we've.
talking
No,
about
no, Chris. I
reducing
think.
costs.
No, but I think one of the
Yeah,
things we've realized in the back and forth is it's
Right.
not the size of the building that's making it expensive. It's the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
If they were doing a big industrial building, it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Bigger versus smaller doesn't add that much
If it
cost.
was-
It's the
I will say
finishes
that
and stuff.
If it was the foundation that was stopping us, that was the issue, I would urge that we rip it out.
Right.
okay?
Same here.
And the cemetery just has to eat it. But, of course, that's not really helpful to the cemetery. But it's not. We're fortunate that was the chapel discussion. We said,
Yes,
we thought the
that's right.
foundation, the chapel was there. And said, no, this is the building. We got it. Okay, it's very good, then it's done. And we got over that. But, no.
All right. Just so everybody knows, this is the exterior drawings. You can see what it looks like.
You have color ones.
Right, the smaller ones are actually in
Okay,
color.
yeah, all right, okay.
That may be supported.
Yes,
Right.
please do.
This is the
Yeah.
Skylight into the niche room. You can see it from different sides. This is a picture of the stacks. They will be covered by a chimney-like area, so you'll be able to see them.
This is what we need.
Yep.
I think this is.
Nah, that's too much detail. We don't need that.
This is the image, sorry. Thank you.
This is kind of a better saying. But this is over the niche room. This is the front of it. These are the porte cochere there. That's the back stack. Then there will be areas for HVAC, et cetera. And this is the side view coming down towards it. So, I mean, it is a nice building. Was the point,
No stonemason work?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, little carvings or anything? Okay. I think it's laid out. I mean, questions, more discussion? Got anything?
No.
I'd love to see a few $100,000 shaved off this
I'll
thing.
do my best for you, Mr. Chairman.
Will,
Huh? What?
nothing.
All right.
I'll move to accept the project.
I don't have any further discussion on it. Second?
I'll second.
Oh, hold on. Time out.
More discussion?
Sorry, before you formulate, leaving aside everything we've discussed to date, do you now have final sign-off from DEC?
Yes,
Okay, and final sign-off from all of the local sign-offs you need?
this is it. You
Okay.
heard it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure because otherwise I was going to say it would have to be conditioned on that, but I don't
I think it is conditioned statutorily and regulatorily.
Right.
Well, it is, but
right.
we have all the permits.
That's what, I just wanted to double-check that.
Right. I would, before I put it for a vote, I would urge you and the division to really work to try and bring the number down if you can. I understand. I'm looking at it.
I hear you.
I got it. It costs money to build a nice building, okay? And maybe I'm a little out of touch with that because
That's
you know
okay.
where I live and what I do to build.
Well, Dan probably builds buildings like this with his bare hands, right?
I'm a stick-built guy, that's
Yeah,
true. but,
With reclaimed wood.
but I'd like to see if you can, because that bottom line, at least under our actuarial projections, is not great. I do recognize that the shelf life is far, far longer than 17 years.
Right.
And the sales are longer than 17 years.
Probably
And
longer
the
than
useful
40
life
years.
of the building is a lot longer than that.
Right, and we need it to be.
Understood, all right? And for that reason, I'm not going to oppose this. So, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'd like to point out, Mr. Chairman, I think this is one of the most interesting meetings we've had. The policies that were discussed and the opinion of council, I appreciate very much, and the division's work in putting this all together. I think it was a good project, and I think it involved all the aspects under which we work.
Yeah.
I just want to add for the record, for the next mega project that comes down the road, that there really is very. You might have gotten the impression out there in TV land that there is some daylight between council's view on this and ours, and the answer is no, there is not. This is a very we regarded this as to whether we would recommend approval or denial as a very close call. It is very much tied to the specific facts of this case and the specific performance that Woodlawn has shown over the years, and even a very slight change in the project would in all likelihood result in a different recommendation from the division.
I think Tony thinks we should build he and I together.
Hey, once you're no longer working for us, have at it.
You want to do some landscaping?
By the way, you
I
might
got
want to
some
stick around. We
on
do
those
have one other
brick
thing on the agenda. It's not very interesting.
All right.
You usually stay.
Thank you for working with us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
It took a while.
we do have
Make you proud.
a second item on the agenda.
Oh, I forgot all about it. Yeah, I don't think it's going to take quite as long as this one.
I sincerely hope not.
Indian Mound Cemetery Association?
Mike, you want to give us
Might not
that?
have it on paper.
No. Mike, you want to give us the summary on this?
And they made me read numbers for this. It's just like,
We don't actually have numbers on this.
No. I
Actually,
mean,
we
And you'll hear why. Oh, we do,
We
sort of. Go ahead.
Indian Mounds, small rural cemetery in Cuba County, Moravia. They're at capacity. They have 11 acres developed and sold, and they have, I think they said two or three graves remaining.
Yep.
Wow.
In 2008, they acquired by donation a 30-acre parcel it's visible. It's visible from the cemetery, it's within a quarter mile, but it's not contiguous. And since 2008, they've been soliciting donations to develop this property, and they're to the point. Unfortunately, I didn't bring the stamped engineer plans with me. However, I do have them in Syracuse. To develop a 1 acre. The phase one would be a 1 acre development. It's basically an entrance off of the town road in a loop, and most of the expenses are for the road and the drainage. It was made clear that the donations were solicited specifically for this development, and if it's not approved, that the donations will be returned.
Right. It was 60, they have 68,000, was it?
65.
They have enough to cover the costs of this initial phase of the project with the donations.
Enough to cover that and the engineering work.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll take, we put a total payout, like how much you'll yield, but the payout is like 150 years away, right? I mean, it's 5 graves a year, but it's fine. Same analysis, by the way, that we talked about before in terms of this is a benefit to the public. That it's not
Right.
necessarily reflected in
This
the
is
system.
obviously a wrinkle in that the money that they have available for this project cannot actually be used for anything else.
Yeah.
Their hope and their belief is that their annual lot sales are going to increase for this new section, because now they're picking through 80, 100-year-old sections, finding individual graves for sale.
The undesirable lots.
Yeah.
They need some glass front niches.
They actually had a proposal to turn their receiving vault into a columbarium, but they stepped back from this and decided that this was a better way to go.
For now, yeah. And then 'Cause they have a lot of land.
They should think about
They have
that.
30 acres.
They have a lot of
of
land
land.
now, yes.
They'll probably end up locating an administrative building if they get really successful, yeah. Any discussion about this one? Anything?
No brainer.
Okay. Motion? Motion?
He's making it.
Go ahead.
I second it.
I move to approve this.
There you go.
I second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
You need to do this. Or can we just?
Oh, yeah, Chet, why don't you give us the
Oh.
vandalism report
In-
anyway? Just give us the numbers.
Yeah, it's just,
Give
it's
us the
really just an
numbers.
update.
Chris wants to get out of here. It's fine. We do it. We had our monthly meeting.
Oh.
We'll do it next time.
Well, you can give Dave the numbers anyway.
Yeah, you can give Dave the numbers.
You're
No-
gonna meet
Oh,
with all
thank
of
you.
us at the next meeting.
That's right.
No
That's
vandalism
right.
applications for this month, for this meeting.
We had hoped to get some on.
That's
And the
no
numbers
luck.
didn't really
No,
change.
no. Thanks for coming. It was good
Chris,
to see you here.
you wanted a
Okay.
brief executive session? Chris does want a very brief executive
Yeah.
session.
I'll be in touch.
We can talk, when they, we'll take a 5-minute break.
I need to go.
Oh, you need to go with these guys? Here, wait, let's,
I'm gonna sit down if you don't mind. Dave Plumbing from the Featherstone Firm. I just wanted to update the board that there is a debriefing today, and I'll report back to the division and council on Whispering Maples. And
Yes.
I do want to thank the division for working with the towns and making sure the state inspectors could be present, and Len was present as well, when the third-party structural engineer came in to review all the properties, and to really go through everything quite well. And I expect a report shortly, and we'll all get ready to sharpen our pencils. But it's not going to be a cheap fix, but I don't think it's going to be quite as devastating as we thought it might be. But there are some basic property issues that will have to be resolved as well as part of their application.
have they moved to extend the receivership yet?
They have.
Okay.
So
Is the
they've
court-
asked for an additional 60 days, partially because the receiver, at the time that she was appointed, had disclosed to the court that she was going to be on vacation for 2 weeks in April. But really feeling like they need this extra time to be able to get the reports back from the structural engineer, have the state review it, and prepare an application for submittal to the cemetery board. I just want to give you an update, and I want to thank everyone for working together, and I've been very pleased with the receiver. She's doing a very good job and working at no pay, which is very nice.
Yep,
And,
yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
That became a group effort.
Yes.
Which was the only way it was
It
going
will
to get
continue
done.
to be a group effort for a while, unfortunately, but I thank you very much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay,
And thank you.
cool. Thank you. You want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for investigative and litigative matters.
Second it.
Thank you, everyone.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Ah.
There you go.
Just like my TV at home, bad backwards. All right, nothing having emerged from executive session, I will motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.